You're watching HCAM TV.
Hello, Hopkinton, and welcome to the Thursday edition of the Hopkinton Hangout Hour. I'm your host, Mike Terosian, and today it's August 13th, I think. Is it? Jim, help me out here.
Today is the 13th, Mike, and try not to sound so excited.
Well, it just seemed like it's been the 13th for the past 5 days. I don't know.
It will be.
But I do know it's Thursday, and Thursday means Board of Health update. And with us, as always, is Board of Health Director Shaun McAuliffe and our town nurse, Kasey Mauro. Hi, guys.
How you doing?
Great. So new stuff is happening, and we crossed Rhode Island off the list, right, of the travel, right? Rhode Island's out. Okay. Forget about that. What I need to know is tonight the school committee is going to be making their decision on opening the schools. So did that just put your department into overdrive?
No, it's just been putting, how do I say this? I've had some interesting meetings with the teachers, and it's been an interesting, like a debate at times and just discussion. And, at the end of the day, like Dr. Kavanaugh's done a good job at explaining and making sure that we are preparing to open up the schools in, with as many safety precautions in place as we can. And so we've been explaining all of the steps that the school has implemented and how those steps with the different engineered barriers, such as using a face covering, social distancing, reducing time exposures in the hall, staggering schedules, etc. How all of those put into play will provide a safer environment when those that are returning in a hybrid fashion return to school.
Are you and Kasey responsible for contact tracing in our community?
Yeah, so that's mostly my job. Once school is open, I'm sure there will be a collaboration between me and the school nurses, just like when they helped us out in March when we had to do a lot of contact tracing. Couldn't do it all at once. I'm sure that there'll be times when they assist me, but typically it's my responsibility for all residents of Hopkinton.
All right, well then this one's coming your way, Kasey. On Tuesday, when we had the hour with the superintendent, we had a lot of questions concerning what happens if a teacher comes down and gets diagnosed with COVID, because we know that the kids in a lot of the schools will be staying in I think the middle school will be staying in the same room and teachers going in and out. I don't know if that's the case for the high school, which I should know, but do you know if that's the same case for the high school?
I don't believe it's the same case for the high school. I do think they're trying to keep some of the pods together. I'm not actually a part of the reopening committee, so some of those plans, like I only get to see the plans that
okay. So if it's the middle school or even the high school, right? Because you have teachers teaching classes, and teachers will be seeing dozens and dozens of kids a day.
Right.
So if the teacher gets diagnosed, does that have any impact on what you're doing with all those? Do you do anything special with all those kids?
Yes. So typically when you do trace back for a case, like you want to know if anyone's had close contact, then that means that they were within 6 feet for greater than 15 minutes, depending on what definition you're looking at. And so where teachers have the potential, especially in younger grades, but maybe not so much in the older grades, like high school, where they might be in close contact with children or be with children in the same room all day long, like their definition will be a little bit more clouded than somebody who's in high school and say spends 45 minutes in a class with a teacher but sits 18 feet away from them with a mask on and cleans their desk and sanitizes their hands before and after they leave, and the teacher was not symptomatic while in school. So, all of those extra steps kind of reflect like who needs to be out of school. It's difficult to say for like children that are going to be in the same classroom for 6 hours at a time with one teacher that may need to tie a kid's shoes or remind them to pull up their mask, or just need a lot more potentially hands-on activity. It's a little bit foggy right now only because DESE recommendations and DPH recommendations don't correlate. However, we did have a call on Tuesday with the state. I think it was Tuesday. And they said that DESE was going to be changing some of their guidelines to make sure that the language was more cohesive with what DPH says for every other case. So I think that was good news because I do think that there needed to be more clarity around like who would technically be a contact case if we have these other things in place. And like Shaun was saying, I think the school committee has put together a strong plan as far as distancing and having the right amount of cleaner and having the right amount of products and requiring all children to be wearing masks. So I do think they have a solid plan in place. Like even if there was a case at school, I think like with all the extra precautions, there's a good potential for it not to spread.
Okay, so I just got to follow up on that, Kasey, because you said something that was really, really interesting to me, because I try to put, these things together, and I know that there is a factor of distance and there is a factor of mask versus no mask, and there's also a factor of time, because the longer you spend in proximity, then the greater the chance that you could contract the virus. And I've never heard what you just said, which was in close proximity for greater than 15 minutes. So
I've done a horrible job if you've never heard that.
You've done a great job.
At the end of night, when people pray, they should be like, and I pray I've never stood next to someone closer than 6 feet for greater than 15 minutes. Like that should be at the end of their prayers.
Okay. All right.
But so, no, it does clarify some things, right? So if there's a case of COVID in the high school and the kids are transitioning in between class and they're wearing a mask and it's less than 5 minutes, and as long as they didn't hug that person in the hallway and then not wash their hands and then maybe go eat their lunch, like there isn't any contact there that would make them a contact case. Even if they walked by them for 30 seconds with their mask on, like that does not mean that they now need to go get tested for COVID.
Right. So if a teacher is teaching one class for an hour, whether that be the teacher coming into the classroom or whether that be the students coming into the classroom, the teacher is only there for 1 hour. And the closest they should be to anyone would be 6 feet.
Right.
So greater than 6 feet for up to an hour. Does that seem reasonable?
Yeah. And then I'm just going to say that they're going to be operating with the windows open. They're going to be operating with enhanced air circulation. So there are a series of other barriers that they're introducing to further reduce the risk to a teacher or a student.
And if I'm not mistaken, from what I heard too, is that their cleaning process has increased more than normal.
Right.
I mean, we're talking daily cleaning and, basically misting and debugging the place. So all that on top should be better.
Right.
Right. So I agree. I mean, the clean, I couldn't even believe it when Kara was saying, like every night they're going to fog everywhere. That's amazing. So I think they're coming into a clean room in the morning. So increased circulation, windows are open, a minimum of 6 feet away from everybody, up to an hour. All these things thrown into the pot are what give us.
In a perfect world, that wouldn't constitute close contact. But people aren't perfect. And when you talk to them, like usually when, you find out there's a case, people panic and they go, oh, actually, I hugged this person. I took my mask down. I didn't wash my hands that day. And like there are people that don't follow the rules very good. And those people, don't feel as comfortable at the end of the day. And then there's people that follow the rules really good. And those people can feel comfortable that with good reason, they shouldn't be a contact case. And so it just really depends on how well you're able to follow that guidance. Like if you're an adult and you're able to follow that guidance, I wouldn't say you would be a contact case. If you're a child in kindergarten and you didn't wash your hands and you eat and you sneeze and you do whatever, like there's the potential that you could be a close contact case. So we should be more careful about that, potentially keep a child out longer and kind of see where things turn up.
And what I keep on saying, and I'll probably say until I'm blue in the face, is that the key to all of this working is that if a teacher is ill, they stay home. If a child is ill, parents keep the child at home because they're ill. And if sick people are staying home, we shouldn't have virus inside the
A little feedback, a little echo going there. So my question that I have now, since the statewide updated gathering order, which took effect Tuesday, states outdoor greetings are now from 100 back down to 50, but the indoor still remains at 25. Do the classes have to remain at 25?
No. So like there's certain sectors that does not apply to. So it does not apply to sports. It does not apply to restaurants. Like restaurants do not have a capacity limit. It is 6 feet apart or a barrier that is 6 feet high. The Department of Labor has different standards for different industries. The guidance mostly applies to outdoor events.
Or more events. It's not like school and work and gotcha. All right, just want to make that clear because I did notice too when I got home this morning, all the basketball rims are off the basketball court in front of the middle school. What happened there, Shaun?
Well, we have met with the young adults and adults playing basketball up there for probably the last month. Both chiefs had been up there, basketball coaches, Parks and Rec officials, and they just weren't listening. And at the end of the day, what I go back to is, there is an illegal activity, people playing basketball without masks, without distancing on a municipal property, so they're breaking the law on a municipal property. So at the end of the day, if they just refuse to comply, they've taken down the signage that we posted. Yep. What are we to do? Like our job right now is to set the community up so that it is as healthy as we can get it, so that we are entering, school season with a low risk of, introducing virus into the school system. And these events, it's actually in the news today. They're kids from multiple communities playing basketball without any regard for the law. And at the end of the day, it was, so what do? Do I protect the residents of Hopkinton and help set the school system up and so for success and possibly reduce the potential for, reduce the potential viral load? Or do I just, wave it off and let it go? And at the end of the day, the senior leaders got together and met, and I said, no, we'll take them down. And then, I've already got a meeting scheduled for next week, and, we can always put them back, but it's this, am I going to hire someone? What am I going to do? Do I hire someone to put it up each morning until 4 o'clock and then have someone go up and take them down?
Well, I'm glad that they finally came down, because even before that, when the order was first lifted that they could use the courts, it was 2 days before that someone cut the nylon strap that tied the nets up. So, okay. For the most part, I just live across the street, so I see it. For the most part, it's been families and some kids. The other night when I went driving by and I saw pennies, which designates teams, there was some kind of organized event. And then I learned they weren't even from town.
Right.
There was, I drove by Friday night and there was maybe 40, 50, like either older teenagers or like adult men playing an organized game without any effort to like follow any of the rules whatsoever. Like nobody was wearing a mask, nobody had a gaiter, nobody was trying. They were all well within 6 feet of one another. And like, if whether they were Hopkinton residents or not, like it's just it's not appropriate. Like it's not okay for them to do that. So I mean and it's not an education thing. Like it's not that they don't know that. Like they it's impossible that they don't know that. So me and Shaun work from 8 to 4. Technically we can go and ticket them, but like, is that the best way to spend our time? And then what if after 4? Like that game is at night.
Yeah, I agree, because there's no way you're going to ticket them, and how you're going to educate everybody else. And hence why I brought it up today, so that the viewers can know why this action has happened and what's been going on. And it was just a simple thing. Like, I saw it, and I was at a baseball game, and I happened to be filming, and we were all by ourselves on the sideline. And all of a sudden, here comes a parent. And then here comes another couple parents. And next thing you know, there was too many that in between innings, I stopped and I asked the people, for our safety and theirs, please, you can't be here. You have to move. And I asked them, and they laughed at me or whatever until the coach had to say something to them. But yeah, what do? You're not going to, ticketing's not going to help. You're just going to educate. We got to learn. You got to understand. We are responsible for this. We are responsible for keeping everyone said, this is why we're here. This is why I'm at my home. Jim's at home. Everyone's at home, because
and it's the law. That's
yeah, I forgot about the law.
And so I'm not going to allow people to break the law, and because when you're breaking the law on a municipal property, you're putting the municipality at risk, or you're creating liability. So at the end of the day, and this isn't being done alone. There's an effort right now between the Department of Labor, the Attorney General's office, the DPH, the Governor's Task Force, to target other activities that have been operating throughout the Commonwealth in violation of the governor's orders. And they're cracking down on these group activities that are potentially setting us up for a return to like maybe phase 2 or worse. And if this is the shot in the bow that's required to get everybody's attention, so be it. But at the we're trying to set Hopkinton up for success, and we're in a great place right now. But we were, I was explaining to the emergency management group yesterday. I received my first notice, my traveler's notice. So I have 87 Hopkinton residents who have traveled to high-risk states or out of the country that we're supposed to be following up with. So we have that risk coming in. We have people that are commuting from other states or communities where there might be a higher incidence of virus that work in Hopkinton. We need to be targeting all of these different risks to maintain the health of our residents in town. And that's a lot of that responsibility falls on the health department. And right now we're mobilizing with, the state police and other, offices in the municipality to help, basically put us in the best position that we can as we get ready to open schools.
So is it?
I just
Oh,
want to follow up real quickly. Shaun, you had talked about that the signage that you had posted by the basketball courts have been taken down. What did the signage say?
Face masks required, when social distancing couldn't be maintained. It referenced the governor's order. I can bring you a sign.
No. So I'm just saying the only thing is that the kids who are playing are not doing is they're not wearing masks.
They're not following the governor's order.
Mm-hmm.
And
I'm just curious because you know what, like if you tried to play basketball and you had to do social distancing, could you even play basketball?
No, and in basketball, like basketball, football, there are certain high risk athletic activities that are just not permitted during phase 3, step 1. Right. So, like I don't like, I hate being the bad guy. I'm not the bad guy. I'm just the bearer of bad news. But like football in any fashion isn't permitted at this phase. It's the law. It's part of the emergency order. So my job is to help, the governor enforce the orders that he puts in place. And it's not that I'm trying to deny kids, access to athletics. I'm just trying to prevent children in Hopkinton from contracting the virus and possibly spreading it to their parents or, their grandparents. And we're trying to maintain. We're at a 0.3 positivity rate in town. That's because, generally speaking, the residents in Hopkinton have been following the rules, and Kasey and I and our team have been doing a really good job at just monitoring our risks and reacting when we need to. And I don't want to jeopardize that. I don't want to have to start considering, closing some of the restaurants or, shutting down, basically doing what we're seeing in Somerville and some of the other communities that aren't doing a good job at managing their positivity.
All right. So at this point, we have a comment on Facebook, and I'm interested to have you answer this. So adults not listening to chief or health department, taking signs down, etc. Are they going to follow the rules in school? Adults not following the rules, but are we accepting they will keep kids home from school? And I want to preface that, Shaun and Kasey, by saying I know you're the town side and I know there's a school side, but I do think that you have a role here, and I'm hoping that you can kind of illustrate or talk about what your role is regarding people following rules in the schools.
So I'll start. So I've approached the Attorney General's office and the state legal counsel for the state that they act as a liaison to the health directors to figure out, what can I do or what can our department do to best support the systems that the superintendent's office have put in place. So if you have a non-compliant parent who continues to send a sick child to school, what are our options? Because I want to make sure that I have all of my options, in place. I have plans, procedures in place to basically react to, these potential issues. Because at the end of the day, I do have the general nuisance law. So if you are continuing to send a child or creating a nuisance or a risk of illness that then places, a school, a classroom, the community at risk, I have the ability to respond to that. But we're researching all the tools that we have to support, the superintendent's office and the teachers at large. Because at the end of the day, my job is to protect, the health of the residents and employees of Hopkinton.
Right. I keep hearing comments like that all the time, well, if the adults aren't going to do it, what makes you think the kids are? You got to give these kids more credit.
Oh, yeah.
The kids pay attention. They are educated because they're in an educational setting. But these kids will also follow the examples. They'll also have supervision where most adults don't have the supervision because they're the supervisor of themselves. So I think the kids aren't going to be a huge issue. I think I think they're going to find problems and things are going to work out because who knows? Nobody's ever done this before.
No, my 5 and 9-year-old are much better at policing me. Between my 5 and 9-year-old and Kasey, I'm kept in check. And generally speaking, I think we're finding that, right? Without putting my foot in my mouth, I think we're getting better compliance from women in the community.
In general, women are better about it. Yeah. I feel like when you ask them, have you been social distancing? Have you been washing your hands? Do you wear your mask? And the answer is yes. And then most men are like,
What?
Not to generalize. But usually there's a little bit of a gray area there. So but if parents are, if September 16th, the first day of school, isn't the first time your kid finds out that they're supposed to be wearing a mask, they'll be better off. So if you start to introduce mask wearing to your children, make sure that they, have masks that they like so that they're willing to wear them, understand the importance of why they should wear them, make sure that they're wearing them effectively once they're on their face. They'll be better off. Of course, you can't expect them to be perfect at it, but it will be the teacher's job, but it shouldn't be the person that's introducing masks to your children, but the teacher's job to just reinforce those good choices. Well, make sure you're wearing your mask, pull your mask up over your nose. They might have to say that a few times a day, but it shouldn't be the first time those kids are hearing it. So they're not going to be perfect at it, but hopefully at this point where mask wearing is not new, and based off of a survey that I did put out for parents, it seems that parents feel very comfortable that their children know how to wear masks. So, if there's not, I did offer to have age appropriate education available by appointment,
Sure.
something to do in the commons, to educate people, but it seems like people have got it under control, they said.
Right. Like I said, and I've used this term so many times. Jim says stop saying it, but I think the face mask is going to be the new seatbelt when it comes to these kids. Because yes, it was always my kids to remind me, hey, Dad, put your seatbelt on. So, because I didn't grow up having it, they did it. So they get in, they start putting that seatbelt on before they get all their stuff in the door and closing it. So I don't see that being a huge issue. One thing I want to talk about, because it just happened on Monday, is Town Hall reopened. Well, with the exception of you guys, there's still you in there yet. But what can we expect with the Town Hall opening? And what are some of the things that people need to know that they still just can't walk in, right?
No, so you can't walk in. There is, like we were talking about earlier, the sector-specific rules. So for an office building, including Town Hall, there's only a certain amount of people that are allowed in the building, which is why things need to be by appointment. In addition to there being limited space, they're also required to complete a health screening, which they can complete at home or they can complete once they have arrived to Town Hall. So expectations are is that you would call, set your appointment with whatever department you need to go to. You would either complete that assessment at home, or once you've arrived at Town Hall, you would complete your business, and that's it. So it's a little bit different, but they're still going to be able to offer the services that people expect.
Can people make appointments to see you at the fire station?
If someone needed to see me for something, they could certainly call me. I probably wouldn't see them at the fire station, but I could meet them at Town Hall.
Right. And the reason I brought that up, and Shaun knows why, the police and fire station still are secure facilities, and you have to get screened every time you show up for work and everything like that. So those two buildings I still aren't open. I just want to make people aware, because you're not in Town Hall Parks and Rec is still, where are they back in Town Hall, Parks and Rec?
They're moving Monday.
They're moving Monday. Okay. So basically everyone except for you will be back at Town Hall?
Right. Like in our office is, anybody who's ever seen our office, it's a long, narrow closet. And realistically it's just not safe and accommodating for all four of us to be there at the same time. So what we decided was that right now it's easier for us to work out of the fire department and have direct access to Chief Slayman and Deputy Miller. It's a secure environment. We'll see what happens when Kasey's office is completed. That'll change things. But then us, I mean, another thing that I look at is us being out does allow for other departments to have other people in there. Technically, we don't count as people because we're health aid or we're in the health department. We're not.
Shaun, you count as people.
I know, there are all these special rules for health officials, but
for my contractor friends, how do contractors do business with the Board of Health, looking up as-built and so forth? How does that happen?
Nadia hasn't missed a meeting yet.
I want you to, well, no, not the meetings. I'm talking about.
No. She hasn't. Anybody who's needed to meet and review a record has been able to call up Nadia, and because our records aren't maintained at Town Hall, she's been taking meetings at our secure file room, and they just meet her. She's got a desk set at the door, and she provides the file. They complete the review, and they're on their way.
Because I want to let the people know at home that you just don't deal with COVID. You have other work responsibilities.
Oh yeah.
There's not a drought going on, and there's no Tripoli or West Nile, or there's not a sewage problem in another place, or a hazardous waste spill that's going on. I'm trying to think what else happened today.
Today, huh?
Today. I mean, but this has been the challenge, is that, we wear a huge number of hats, and the town beach is under our watch. Right now I check in daily with the DPW on the drought situation. We have residents' wells that have run dry. So it's helping them get their contractors in to provide, the fracking service or the well deepening service, or maybe it's just, the well, like a well adjustment. But, all of this stuff it's constantly feeding into the department. And that's where I say, I'm lucky to have, I always say I'm lucky to have Kasey, but, to have Nadia and Brian, who have stepped up and just, and done a fantastic job with the conditions that we were provided. And I'd like to say that I don't think we've caused anybody's delay in opening. I think we've already opened this week. We opened a new restaurant. We got a food truck at Weston, and we got another one opening in the next week. So, we haven't missed a beat.
Well, they don't hear it enough, but I definitely want to give kudos. The town is very lucky to have people like Brian and Nadia working for them. I mean, Brian's been with the town for 20 plus years now.
No, he just came for 2 weeks.
Yeah, it was just, that's right. He was just filling in. He was just filling in. And then he's back to like 4 hours a week. Then he was back to 20, then back to 50. And yeah, Brian's been great, and I'm glad we got him. So you mentioned, and I don't know if you give it away, but Kasey's getting a new office.
Oh yeah. I'm getting a new office. So prior to like COVID, we're trying to just get like the public health nursing program started, and so Some of the things that public health nurses typically do are vaccinate for towns. So I was getting a more appropriate office to do some vaccinations and also some types of like health screenings, whether it was like glucometer checks with people, or blood pressure screenings, something that didn't require them to sit in a room with me, Nadia, Shaun, and Brian. Felt it was like more like a private clinic.
Privacy. You should have privacy doing that.
Otherwise, they're breaking like every law possible in our office. So I mean, so it's really exciting that the town has invested in this program. It's such a short amount of time. But no, it's going to be beautiful. It's like, it looks just like a doctor's office. It will have my vaccine fridge in there. And will be a really nice space when we get pictures up. Maybe I'll do maybe we can have HCAM in there on a Thursday. I'll sit in there.
Well, come in there, you can show us how the screenings work and so forth, and I'll sign my HIPAA waiver, and we'll let us film begin done. But I'll tell you, you're gonna love it once you get that fridge, because I'll remember when Jim got me my first mini fridge at HCAM, the whole office was better. It was. But where is this office going to be located?
So they just redid the basement in Town Hall. And so out of like what was the basement, there's now a break room, like a little lobby area. There's my office, and then a larger like conference room.
Oh, so they were able to make it. So they basically cut down. So they cut down that conference room to make an office for you.
It's right by the back door.
Excellent.
So
That's great.
It's accessible. It's at the door that has the push bar, the automatic opening, the automatic door openers. So it works well. So I'm excited to have that open.
All right. So next question I have for you has to do with since we're still not done with COVID. And my last COVID question, I don't know how many Jim has, but has to do with the testing sites. I see there was a very successful one at Keith Tech, which was, I heard, a traffic nightmare, the way they weaved all the cars in and out because it was very popular. Are there still testing sites going on?
Yeah, so the testing sites, the Stop the Spread initiative was extended to September 12th, and they will be focused based off of high-risk areas. And so if you had a chance to, like last time when we talked, we kind of talked about like percent positivity of each town. So they actually talked about percent positivity of each town and how they're going to help towns that have a higher level get back down by using like a task force and specific messaging for those towns that have a high rate. And then they're going to use that percent positivity level to determine whether or not schools should be full, hybrid, or remote. So they're still going to be in those same towns that they have listed, and they will be expanding them as that percent positivity changes.
Okay, we have a question from social media from Jennifer saying, I heard the state is exploring the possibility of some COVID-19 testing for public schools. Do you have any details on this effort?
They haven't provided any detail. It's been brought up that it would be easier if there was some universally applied system for testing and policy and procedure in place for teachers, but we haven't been provided anywhere. So that means it'll probably come up on Friday.
I gotta say, wouldn't it be like, I know there's a lot of kids in the school, just like 4,000 kids in Hopkinton in the school system. However, the older ones, middle school and high school, I believe those are the ones that we're more concerned with as far as spreading the coronavirus. Is there any thought about, I don't know, testing all of them and then testing them all again later and kind of seeing what happens? Wouldn't that be really good information?
So I do think that there's,
Okay, no problem.
So it's quieter in this room. So first off, it's a matter of resources. I mean, that model is being used at a number of, and actually most of the universities in Boston. It, but it, it's really a matter of resources. It's, I think Kasey can confirm, it's roughly 20 or 25 to 37 bucks. We'll say 25 to 40 bucks a test, or more, per student. I think that's
So,
right.
yeah. So I mean, it depends on like so what would be the pros? Obviously, like the more information you have, the better that is. However, like the information is only as good as the day that it was taken. So
Right.
like when you took that test and what the kids did after that. So it'd be better to educate people to quarantine to this area, and that doesn't mean stay in your house, but like stay in this area, stay in low risk areas that are similar to Hopkinton, so that when you do go back to school, you don't have this like oops moment. I do think that testing is important. I don't think that there are the resources available right now to be able to test that many people. We have acquired and are still working out the logistics of rapid testing, but we do have a system. It is approximately $37 per test, but that is like with that would be just out of pocket right now. So we're trying to figure out a way to work with the facility so that we would be able to provide some type of testing for schools should they need it, but like the actual guidance from schools, or if school nurses would be doing tests, or if school nurses would have the ability to do that, like none of that is available. And I think it's a really big ask for them to do that before the school year starts, because they already have so much other care they provide, just like us. Like we wouldn't be able to do septics and wells and everything else that we do if we didn't have 4 people doing one job. Like there's only one nurse at each school to do all the things that she usually does, whether it's medication administration, or like checking, finger sticks. Like that's a lot. It's a lot to ask.
Right. And but what we've done is we step back, and I wrote the governor's task force yesterday, recommending that the governor speak to the fact that if we had a universal request to, like as Kasey said, kind of pause and quarantine ourselves and our children, for 10 to 14 days before we send them off to school, that would be a good start.
Just as a note, that was in Carol's plan, but a lot of people didn't see it because it was like you had to click into it. So it actually is in the plan for Hopkinton students for them to quarantine in town, like with their families 14 days prior to the school. And so like that means only going to low risk states, traveling to places that have similar risk levels to ours, which are going to be reported on daily now. So it is in her plan for people to do that.
But it's all about everybody taking some personal responsibility, taking responsibility for your children, and just making sure that we're all doing our part to support the school system. And at the end of the day, if what the superintendent has laid out and what we've done as the health department, if we're all working together, parents are going to see some continuity in their return to work. They'll see and benefit from some just normalcy in their lives. And so I'm like, be a little selfish in this. You have a vested interest in this whole project working. And so that's our ask, is just that everybody, participate and be responsible about this.
So I'd like to ask, I'm curious, just what your level of concern is about everybody working together and doing their part. And the two things that I point to, number one, the basketball courts couldn't work out because people weren't going by the rules. So you had to do what you had to do. And there have been examples all over the place of people not physically distancing and spreading the virus around. So I agree. I think at this point, it's not a lot of things that people need to remember: masks and distance and washing your hands and using sanitizer. And really, that's what we got to do. I'm just kind of curious if you have any sense of what your level of concern that is going to happen.
I mean, like, so I think we can look to the programs that have run this summer where parents have had a vested interest in the success of the program. So our ESY program, that ran well. The Parks and Rec program ran well. And the Y, all of them, for all intents and purposes, ran incident free. And where we did have, a minor, oh my God, like those issues, someone who worked for one of the programs was potentially positive, but they were caught through the attestation process. There was a child who was potentially ill who was caught before they even entered the building. We had, people calling us constantly, hey, I've got this symptom, I've got this symptom. And we were able to just walk people through and say, no, you really should be set out to quarantine. And, but because everybody had kind of bought into this, we actually had a lot of success. And then like with there was a number of, students in town that had contact. Well, one had contact with a known case, and then they had contact with a whole slew of their friends. But because they were wearing masks, the contact was less than like 30 seconds. Otherwise, they were all distanced. Nothing came of it. And this is it's not rocket science. If you're just following these basic, face coverings, distancing, hygiene, we should be able to beat the virus. And we've got a number of cases. You look at Price Chopper. How many potential exposures a day, go, like how many people pass through Price Chopper a day? They've had one incident. And then we sat down and did a video surveillance to see who that person had contact with, and made sure that there was no other potential exposure, and nothing came out of that. So if Price Chopper can pull this off, if, like I said, all these other programs can pull it off, if the DPW, fire department, and police department can pull off, with all they do is the daily attestation, they take their temperatures when they get in, they check and report that they've had no symptoms, and they wear face coverings and distance. We've had a lot of success. So there isn't a lot of reason why we can't expect the schools to be as successful. But it all comes down to everybody buying into the system.
I mean, I think the expectations for school are very clear. They are requiring masks. They're requiring social distancing. They're requiring that you quarantine. There's now a travel ban. They've clearly outlined where's safe to go, where's not safe to go, the activities that are appropriate. They're adding a task force to specifically police towns that are not doing this well. They're trying to set people up in the best way they can. So, you can tell people as much as you'd like this is an advisory, this is a recommendation, but at some point, people have a choice to either follow it or not. Like where school will have clear guidelines, this isn't a recommendation, this is a requirement. And if you can't fulfill this requirement, then we need to reevaluate your ability to participate in this. Like nobody like gawks at the mask required sign at the grocery store anymore. We just put it on and we go get our groceries on and we leave.
Right.
We're not talking about that anymore. And the same thing it will be the same way with schools. It'll be hard in the beginning, but it will become normal and people will be able to do it just like they do it for other activities where masks have been required before.
Okay, great. Couple of the quick questions that are coming in. John asks, thoughts on the info coming out about the long-term cardiac impact of COVID-19, even for mild cases? Can we get this out to the invincible youth in town?
I mean, we can certainly get it out, right? So there's several different studies about the long-term effects of COVID. I have read that one. It is by a reputable source. They do have good information. I do think that there's some value in reporting these these reputable sources and their findings. However, everything is constantly changing with COVID. Like what we knew yesterday is maybe true today, maybe not, could be wrong tomorrow. So I think it's important to spread information, good information, but I can't rely that is going to be true 1 week from now. And then how do I look as a source when I'm saying you should be scared of this, and then we find out actually you don't have to be scared of that. I do think people should be scared of COVID to some extent. We don't know enough about it. So don't assume that you know everything with something that's brand new.
Right. Okay, I'm getting a nudge from Mike. I have to wrap up because he has some stuff to say too. But there's one more question, and it kind of plugs into what I was going to ask you. Lori asks, is there going to be certain face coverings not allowed in schools? I hear gaiters, bandanas are the worst, but many use them. So in addition to that, I'd also like to know if you could talk about masks versus face shields versus both.
So I know that the school department is evaluating that. We have requests out to the Department of Public Health to put out a position paper or a position statement. The last statement that they had was any face covering is better than no face covering, but
Right.
that was the week prior to the North Carolina report that's been publicized about how gaiters may aerosolize the droplets. So that's still to be determined, because even that's a dry, was that a dry gaiter versus a gaiter that had moisture from, respiring into it. So there's a lot of work that's still being done. And as Kasey just said, what's been true to one study, there are additional factors that are
proven wrong tomorrow. So I mean, we can ask DPH to make a formal statement, but I think as of today, a mask, no matter what it's made of, as long as it covers your nose and mouth, is better than nothing.
Yeah.
Great. All right. So I need to know, we are coming to the end of summer. All right. COVID's all I hear about, but Shaun had to say it earlier, but Tripoli, West Nile, what's coming up? What is on your radar that you can't ignore because you're too busy swabbing nostrils?
So Tripoli and West Nile are hot on the list, but I checked the numbers. I'm actually supposed to go in and check the numbers again tomorrow. I get my next update. But our mosquito counts, especially for the mosquito that most commonly bites humans in this area, are much lower than they were last year, and they continue to drop because of the drought. This perturbans mosquito, it needs healthy cattails, and it needs a water body to survive or breed in. And a lot of our detention ponds are just drying up. So we're not seeing the cattail population. But you look down at, Plymouth and Bristol County that have had a lot more rain than us, and they're a lot swampier. That's where we're seeing the most activity. The drought is an obvious concern because, we have a finite, amount of water in our, you know, in our aquifer. And I know we were just raised to a level 2 risk level. So we need to start talking about conservation in town. And that's going to be a big one.
All right. So, all right. Now we're coming up to that. Almost forgot what it was called. Oh, yeah. Regular flu. Right. We're going to be coming into regular flu season, the influenza, as we all talk about. So, Kasey, by doing what we're doing now with the COVID, is that going to help us with the flu? Do I need to get a flu shot? Where do I get flu shots? Which you know why I'm saying that. So lead us into the end.
So I am looking for volunteers. We're trying to build our Hopkinton MRC. An MRC would be used to do a flu clinic, which, you know, it's still a recommendation that everyone gets a flu shot. So, you know, we're trying to build up a team. That way we can start to set up some dates. I have already pre-ordered my flu vaccine for this year. So we ordered a bunch of high dose, and we will be having a flu clinic, and I am happy to take medical and non-medical volunteers. All they'd have to do is just email me, my town email, so kmauro at hopkintonma.gov, and I can get them the information so that they can join.
Perfect. Thank you for bringing that up, because yes, the flu shot is still very important to get if you're into it. And they already have this year's flu shot ready. They already know what strain they're going to be chasing.
Not that I've read, but I mean, I did put like my pre-order in for
Pre-order it. Okay. Because they usually wait till just at the very beginning to decide, you know, how we're going to treat it, because it changes. And not only does it change year to year, but it can also change during the season, correct?
Yes, I mean, like, yeah, you can have like a more prevalent one, so you can have more flu A or more flu B. Like, so I think last year, like we had early on, it was more flu A, and then it kind of transitioned in March to more flu B. But so, yeah, so with COVID and the flu, it would be very important to get your flu shot this year. Last year around this time, around like March, they thought if you had the flu, you didn't have COVID, but we actually had a case that had both. So we know that you can have both. So, you know, it's better to get a flu shot, and hopefully it is an effective flu shot. So if you do get symptoms that are similar to COVID and the flu, you know, we can rule one out, and you're already been cared for just one.
And now this is going to be Hopkins' first flu clinic that they had in a while or ever. Is this the first one?
Clinics in the past that were hosted by AFC. So this would be the first time that we would really be using like Hopkinton volunteers to be able to serve our community. You know, I only started in November last year, so kind of missed the ball too.
Seems like years.
Started a vaccination program before COVID, but yeah, it'll be like our first like big one while I've been the nurse for like.
Right. Yeah, no, because I remember, you know, it was just open for at one point just to town employees. It was, you know, and of course, again, it was all privately run. You see the clinics done at the drugstores and all the clinic places and so forth. But it's nice to see that the community, and now this is going to be, I'm sure, something new, a COVID-friendly version, right?
Right. So, you know, we will, which I think a lot of people will like, we're going to be offering it through a drive-through. So people don't have to get out of their cars. We'll be able to vaccinate children, adults, have the high dose vaccine for seniors. And it will be in a drive-through model. So you don't have to go into a doctor's office to get this done. And it will be done in town, similar to like when we did COVID testing. So it will be very convenient. It doesn't cost anything. Would just go through insurance
which is the best part. Absolutely. All right, Kasey, I want to thank you. Shaun, as always, thank you guys for the information. It changes so much every week, and we're glad you can come in and take the time on Thursdays to tell Hopkins and everything that's going on, keep us up to date. So we'll see you next week. And again, if you want to help with the future flu clinic that Kasey's running, just send it to kmauro at hopkintonma.gov. Send an email. You don't have to be a nurse. You don't have to be a doctor. You be a slug like me that drives a truck and knows how to fill out an application for people. I'm going to be there. I'm going to help her. So right. I'd love to have you there. Jim, thank you for sailing the ship with me today. And we'll see everybody tomorrow for the Hopkinton Hangout Hour.
Great. Bye, guys.
Thank you. Bye-bye.